Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining me today. Today, I have got crime writer and teacher James Murphy in to speak about his work and let you know a little bit more about the Terror trilogy and what he's working on and a few more other things. So, thank you very much for joining me today, James.
No problem, Kelly. Thanks for having me.
It's always great doing events with yourself, in the local crime writing community and learning about, terror and where your inspiration was really to write the trilogy. But we're going to be touching on a few more things other than terror. But I was wondering if you could kind of tell us the premise for someone who maybe hasn't come to the trilogy yet.
Yeah, sure. The premise is basically, well, the novels are set around a head teacher who very quickly has to become a private investigator because an uncle that he's very close to, who happens to own a private detective agency, is murdered. And we have basically we have a failed police investigation. So our central character, Mark Shaw, embarks on trying to find justice for his uncle. So he inherits the detective agency, which he thinks is just a kind of a one-man low-rent operation, to suddenly find that actually that's not the case. And he begins to assemble a team to help him. So a bit of a kind of a misfit team. We have a former DCI from Liverpool, his wife, who's a crime writer, and a psychic medium. So that kind of makes for an interesting adventure for them itself and just getting to know each other. But also along the way, they find themselves on the paths of a serial killer, a famed serial killer, and a cult movement. And they really have to decide which or both would be responsible for Mark's uncle's murder. So it's across 3 books, but obviously that's the main story arc. But we have several others going on underneath there as well.
Yeah. And I love that whole thing that you've done there, bringing the cult into it. Was that always in your mind that you wanted to write something, or you were interested in real life cults or anything?
Well, I always was interested in the idea of cults, but I myself spent kind of 11 years or over 11 years as a head teacher of a school that very often found itself accused of being a religious sect. So I had to learn lots about cults and sects to kind of not defend the school, but certainly to ward off that kind of argument that we came up against quite a lot. So I knew about it, and I was always interested in it. And with the kind of central story, the terror serial killer, I thought it made sense to actually bring the two of them together, because although in many ways there wasn't that much of a link, in other ways there was. So, and it was my debut novel, and if I'm being honest, they say write about what you know, so I did. Not the serial killer bit, obviously.
Yes, because sometimes they say the first novel is like semi-autobiographical, isn't it? So
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of that for me. I mean, the place that I used for Farce Investigations, which is the detective agency, the building that I use for my inspiration is actually my former primary school. So I would frequently drive past it when I'm in Belfast, and it's just it was actually just in ruins. It's actually under construction at the moment for redevelopment, or renovation, I should say. So I used to drive past it and think, it looks like a really cool location for something sinister to happen. But I also felt the drive to just kind of put it on the map a wee bit as well. So I thought that would be great. So I started using that, and yes, there was an element of kind of my head teacher background went in there as well, and kind of growing up in West Belfast and so on. And that came into it. One thing I really, really didn't want to do was to mention anything about conflict in Northern Ireland. But like possibly every other local writer I know. It was there within like 2, 3 chapters, and it's not a major focus of the book, but it kind of made me realize as a writer that you can't really escape it. It has to be there in some shape or form. But no, definitely not a main focus at all.
Yeah, it's funny every time I hear a local crime writer talk about, if they wanted to write about the Troubles, or if they plan to, like you're saying, most people I think have thought to themselves that they won't, but it comes in, seeps in there somehow, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And I suppose it's good because, I mean, obviously writing, as you well know, is a way of kind of processing how you feel about something and what you think about it. So invariably, it's going to be in you that you're going to need to let that out in some creative form, and that's, I suppose, what happens.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and I love that you have those different locations. I think that readers really like to, to read a book and it feels local. We've kind of grown up with reading a lot of American writers, or we know America from the movies. And of course, you
Yeah.
do move about within your books with your locations, but you have West Belfast in there, and it's very vivid, and you're great at your settings and getting a real feel for a place. So why was it important to you that you had West Belfast?
It wasn't a conscious thing at the time, I'll be honest. I just wanted to use that location, that school, so therefore it had to be West Belfast. But West Belfast is where I'm from, where I grew up. And the more I got into writing the trilogy, the more I thought that it was important to actually have the novel set there, and to kind of celebrate West Belfast, because where I grew up is more infamous for the not so nice parts of our history. And there's a lot to be said about the place and the people that is very, very positive. So I felt a wee bit of a responsibility to do that. But also from my point of view as a teacher, a former head teacher and so on, education is really important to me. And I know that literacy levels in certain parts of West Belfast are quite poor, and aspiration for educational attainment is quite poor as well. So I wanted to just let people see that actually, if somebody like me who grew up just off the Falls Road and went to this school that's now, in print, if I can do it, then you can do it as well. And that made it really important to me. So that's why most of it is set. And I'm very proud to be from Northern Ireland. That's a huge part of my identity and a huge part of my culture. So it made sense to celebrate Northern Ireland as well. So it's not just West Belfast. I mean, I go, I think, from Portrush to Ardglass to Newton Ards gets a mention where you are at the moment. And like, it's places I know, places I've worked, places I've holidayed, all that sort of stuff. So it's, I suppose from that point of view, it makes it easy, and from a description. And the language makes it quite, makes using the language a lot easier as well.
Yeah. What about then whenever you do move around and you take your book to New York, Boston, and you're moving about? Where was the inspiration really for that?
Well, initially it was the idea that, well, from the cult aspect, obviously most cults are worldwide entities. And from a lot of the research I was doing, it seemed that quite a few of them seemed to originate in and around Australia and New Zealand. So it made sense that therefore maybe the headquarters of the Enlightenment, as the cult is named in the books, it made sense that they were maybe in and around Sydney. So so I had to do a little bit of research around consulates and what they're called and how they operate and so on for the plot. New York was an interesting one as well, because part of the plot, and certainly in the early book, the investigation involved a possible link to the Titanic. And without revealing too much of the plot, our serial killer is always 1 or 2 steps ahead of the team that are trying to investigate. So he knew that they suspected a Titanic link, and he decided to tease them a little bit um, by creating a murder, or facilitating a murder in New York, in Strauss Park, which has a Titanic memorial within it. So because I've been writing so, I don't want to say easily, but writing with ease about West Belfast and the local areas because I know them. Obviously, I don't know New York or Sydney and so on as well. So I had to research quite a bit. And what I actually found was, with the New York thing, was I needed a Titanic memorial. And I thought, there's going to be one in New York.
Yeah.
So I was busy writing away. What I didn't realize was that there are actually 2. So it was about choosing the one that would be most suitable to the plot and all that sort of stuff. And I think when you're writing about location, it's important that, as you say, the readers come along on the journey with you, and they like the way you describe the location. So to me, it's just as important to get New York right as it is to get the Falls Road or whatever it happens to be right.
And you were saying about, your research there, and, going in and researching a bit more about New York and the Titanic Memorial. But how much research would you do? And I sometimes get conflicted about this. I try to do enough, but I know that research is very enjoyable, and it can kind of be procrastination for me sometimes. So I try not to go overboard with something I've learned. But how do you feel, and how do you research, and how much would you do, really?
To me, research is really important because I remember, I think I've told you this story before, but I remember interviewing Louise Phillips, and she was telling me about spending a day in a police cell in America as part of her research. And at the time, I was quite new to the whole thing. And I thought, would you really go to that level? And she said, well, actually, you need to think about your moral compass and your moral responsibility, because a lot of the themes we deal with in crime fiction are not nice, to put it bluntly. And if you are, for example, talking about the victim of an assault, then you need to handle that in an appropriate way. And that's always stuck with me. So from that point of view, research, is key. But also, I think it's important, particularly if you're adding bits of like police procedure or forensics or that sort of stuff. I think it's important to be believable, so therefore try and get it right. I'm not saying it necessarily has to be 100% all the time, as long as it's believable. But if you can make it right without overcomplicating it with the medical language and all that sort of stuff, then I think the readers tend to like that.
Yeah.
And they're used to reading it from other crime novels and seeing it on their TV screens all the time as well.
So, I think I've used the excuse of, how many things I would watch on the TV or read where I'm thinking, I'm sure they do not do that like that in the place, or I suspend my disbelief all the time. So yeah, trying to get it to kind of feel authentic, without kind of adding in all of those really dry bits that you learn in your research.
Well, thinking about the TV dramas, you can see that in, but I'm a bit of a kind of a true crime fan as well, and I like the where you have the retired police officers or whatever it happens to be, telling you how they go about it, investigating it. And I find that really helped my writing a lot, because not only are you getting it right, but you're explaining it the right way as well. So I mean, one of the things that stuck out for me was a thing about if a body's found, for example, in a TV drama that they've been shot, they're always, most of the time, they're found lying on their back. Whereas apparently in real life, that's not the case. And the particular program I was watching explained why it wouldn't be the case. And it's to do with, obviously, how you react initially when you're first shot and so on, your body's reaction to it. So more often than not, you're found face down. And with that, it kind of got me thinking, you do need to explain wee bits like that. And then people that are coming at it from a TV drama point of view, are suddenly going, oh yeah, that's on, I hadn't thought about that, but that would be right.
Yeah.
So you're instantly getting them a lot more invested in your story.
Yeah.
Just coming from that point of view. So yeah.
Yeah, there's more rules whenever you're writing a novel compared to when you're writing for TV. And as you're saying, there's like the ethics as well. You have to have like a bit of an ethical code, don't you, when you're writing crime as well?
Absolutely, because I mean, although crime fiction novels tend to deal with obviously very dark matter by their genre, but they also do, in my opinion anyway, offer quite a social commentary as well.
Yeah.
So it's important that you get that commentary right, and that your voice is heard.
Yeah.
So that's the way I look at it anyway.
I know that you also teach creative writing, and maybe at the minute it's went all online as well, or you teach writing fiction.
Actually, I don't know why, but this weekend, as I was telling you kind of off camera, has been very crime orientated for me, with writing articles and writing the book and so on. But I've had lots of emails in over the weekend saying, when are you going to start? Are you doing another one? Are you going to announce something soon? Because I did do a lot of present in person stuff. And actually we also got some really good news over the weekend that one of my students from the last course, one of the first courses, I suppose, has been busy beavering away and was offered a publishing contract on Saturday.
Fantastic.
So we all stay in touch as groups, and we have a huge WhatsApp group and so on. So we're all delighted, obviously, for her. But yeah, we've had lots of queries with restrictions still in place. Obviously, I can't. But as soon as everything's lifted and we're able to go again, I'll definitely be doing it. During the pandemic, though, I went online initially, with the help of the Arts Council, who were fantastic. And that was brilliant. I mean, we got people from all over the world on that, and we all really, really enjoyed it, and it was a huge success. So there's scope for maybe doing that again too. But I was also conscious that after a while, we're all getting a wee bit zoomed out, with all the online meetings and going to whatever happens to be getting held online, and learning to do whatever, play the ukulele and all sorts of stuff. So I thought, what can I do to maintain the interest, because there is an interest there, without having to get people exhausted with the idea of being online all the time. So I realized that I was listening to a lot of podcasts, and they were something that I was interested in, and they seemed to be a growing trend. So I thought, I'll do a podcast. So I went back to the Arts Council, and they very kindly offered to continue my support for it. And I knew, and I'm sure we'll touch on it later, but the local crime writing community in Northern Ireland are all fantastic. So I knew that if I was going cap in hand saying, I need you to tell me all your secrets on how you write for my audience, then it was going to be pushing at an open door. So that's where I've been with the teaching at the moment. And you've been on, obviously, in the last few weeks. And I can't believe, I knew it was something that was going to have a bit of an interest, but I just can't believe the listenership we have, the subscriptions. It's just a bit mad, really.
No, it's great, and it really comes from that kind of angle of crime writers telling you their process, isn't it? So I've been listening to it, and it's brilliant, and that's what I was saying to Sharon in my first video, and here my first interview. Something she said that really resonated with me that I hadn't heard someone else saying before, and we're all missing those kind of events and listening to other writers talking about how it works for them, and then you go, yes, that's right, that's great, or that's a new way to try something. So it's a brilliant idea, and it's a great podcast. So everyone, subscribe.
Yeah, I mean, I set out, as I say, to bring the kind of the emerging and aspiring crime writers along, and to give them a bit of a sense of, right, I'm going to do that now. But actually, as you say, it's also turned into a bit of a lifeline for us, just to be able to sit down and talk crime for 45 minutes or whatever it happens to be.
And you've also got your blog. You blog quite regularly, don't you, James? But you've got a little kind of
Yeah.
spin-off kind of, I suppose, that you're doing at the minute with Easter eggs, which is really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, with the blog, what I tend to blog as often as I can about various things. And I have a newsletter as well, which I'm trying to kind of tie together with the blog. But because the Terror trilogy is out there, all 3 books are out there now. I'm obviously on to my next project. But what I was finding was that there was still an appetite from readership, wanting a wee bit more from the whole forced investigations and the whole terror thing. So I thought, well, I don't want to stop the project I'm on to do some more Farset stuff, and I will come back to the Farset investigations at some point.
Good.
But I thought, well, how do we keep their appetite satisfied, if you like? So I decided to do a kind of a peek behind the curtains at what inspired the writing and things involved in it. And one of the first things I did was Easter eggs. So obviously, for those that don't know, Easter eggs are the kind of little hidden treasures, if you like, within a piece of writing that maybe only the author knows about, or only maybe a select number of people that maybe know the author or fans of the books and so on. And for me, the fun thing to do was around character names, or one of the fun things was around character names. And I'm a fan of the Britpop era of music, particularly the band Pulp. So I decided to use the band's surnames as character surnames. And I thought that would be a nice thing to let people know about, because you've heard about it in the past with The Fall, for example, when Alan Cubitt was naming the characters after his favourite guitars, and Stuart Neville's done that as Hale and Beck as well. So I thought, yeah, that's an interesting, it's a bit of a departure and a bit of a twist, but it's still a nice idea. And when I was coming up to the last book, I needed quite a dark character. And I hadn't used all the surnames. So I coincidentally, I had my phone beside me at the time. Of course, Twitter notifications flash up, and that's a great way of procrastinating, but that's another story. And I said to myself, right, the next notification that flashes up, that's the name of the character.
Yeah.
Well, I probably wouldn't have done that in fairness, but as it happened, it was Nick Banks, who was the drummer from Pulp, or is the drummer from Pulp. So I messaged him and said, this is the story. I need to have a dark character. Can I use your name? And he loved the idea. So I did that. And then I was lucky enough then to go back and interview him about, his take on it and if he liked it and all that sort of stuff, which was fantastic. I think that's another thing about crime fiction, aside from Easter eggs, is that it gives you an avenue and gives you the confidence to go and approach people to do stuff like that. I mean, if somebody told me, even though I was a head teacher and was regularly speaking to like hundreds of people at a time, if somebody told me that 2 years ago I'd be doing a podcast or even sitting chatting to you like this, I'd have been saying no way. If they'd said I would be in fairly regular contact with members of my favorite bands, I would be saying you're mad. But that's crime fiction, and that what can you do?
It's a strange journey it takes you on.
Exactly. So the Easter eggs was where names was one of the main things, and then within the household here, we're all football fans. My wife is a diehard, and I mean diehard Liverpool fan. Kind of born and bred, and I'm Manchester United. So you can imagine what matches are like in our house and what the rivalry is in our house. So again, I thought it would be quite fun to use, at the time, it was the manager's surnames. So it was Brendan Rodgers in Liverpool's case and Sir Alex Ferguson in mine. So what I thought would be an even better twist was one of the characters is from Liverpool. So, and he was obviously a Liverpool supporter. So I thought, wouldn't it be funny to have his surname as Ferguson?
Like you did there.
And then that kind of found its way into the novel as well, because he obviously got ribbed by the fact that, you know, he was a Liverpool supporter called Ferguson and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So there are other things. I mean, I could talk all day about Easter eggs, but yeah, I want people to buy the books now.
No, I know, don't get them all away. No, I love that interview with Nick from Pulp, and I love Pulp too. I can't believe that you interviewed him. That just seems so amazing, you know, whenever you grew up and that was who you saw on stage and on
Yeah,
TV.
exactly.
Pretty cool.
Well, I had, in fairness, I did have to say, like, I followed you all around the UK.
And also, just before, wasn't it before Christmas, you were working on the festival?
Oh, the Festival of Writing, yeah, that's another.
Yeah.
I was going to say feather in my cap. I can't decide whether feather in my cap or thorn in my side would be the but yeah, I'm one of the founding members of the Northern Ireland Festival of Writing. And it's actually, the festival this year was brilliant. I mean, we thought, like so many other festivals, you know, everything was either being cancelled or moving online or whatever. And again, we were kind of worried because we thought our aim is similar to the aim of my podcast, in the sense that we're trying to get people that feel that they've been disenfranchised, or, you know, they maybe are lacking in confidence, or they don't have great literacy skills. We want to kind of bring them on board, expose them to the fantastic talent we have in Northern Ireland in terms of mentorship and writing and all that sort of stuff, and then give them a platform themselves. So we thought, lockdown, there's a greater need for our festival than there has ever been. And we can't do it. So what are we going to do? So we decided to go online partially, and do the usual kind of workshops and so on, that we would offer. And again, we widened the team, brought more people on board, and we were able to offer more workshops. But then we got approached by NVTV, who, you know, obviously the local public broadcaster, and they said, we love what you do. Why don't you do it for us and we'll televise it?
Fantastic.
So they gave us over a weekend's worth of programming. So we had a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which we used then to look at various different genres within writing. So we had lots of stuff about crime, obviously, can't think why. And then we had people coming in doing poetry. We had people coming in from Women Aloud. We had bloggers. We had comedy. We had Tim McGarry talking about comedy writing and so on. So we literally just took over the studio and packed as many interviews in a socially distanced way, obviously, as we could over those 3 days. And it was, the response was fantastic.
Yeah.
It really was. And again, if anyone's interested, as far as I'm aware, the videos are all on the Festival of Writing, Northern Ireland Festival of Writing Facebook page, and they will be going up on the YouTube page soon. I think they're also available via MVTV on their kind of on demand. Yeah. But there's been a huge range of people there. But yeah, but by the Christmas holidays, I didn't know if I was blown up or stuffed.
I'm sure you do so much, you know, for the crime writing community and just for the writing community in general in Northern Ireland. So I was just wondering, if someone was starting off and they didn't want to blog, or they just want to write their book. I think we all start off like that. You know, don't we just want to get your head down and maybe don't realize how big community really is? Would you say to them that they can do it without blogging or doing something extra? What's your thought?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, a lot of people, and I get this through my through the crime fiction classes, a lot of people when they come into the idea of crime writing, that they have usually a really great idea and they want to write, but they think writing something you do in isolation. And yes, it is the actual act of writing and crafting your story is, but unless you get it out there, it's not really going to do anything. So I would always say to people about going to events, book launches and so on, because that's a really good way of meeting the community and building your own confidence a little bit. And no, you don't necessarily have to be thinking, oh, I need to be a blogger, I need to be an influencer, I need to do this and that. I do think it helps. I think it helps a lot. Not just from the point of view of raising your profile as a writer, but for me, more so actually increasing your confidence in what you do. I mean, even from my role in education and what I do now with the universities and so on, I always suffered imposter syndrome, and now I'm kind of at an age now where I think that's something to embrace, because it got me to the pinnacle of my education career relatively quickly, and it's now helping me in my crime fiction writing career. So I think it's, if you're shy and you're that type of person, think, okay, that's fine, I get that, but I'm now going to embrace that and use it. And that's one of the things I say very early on in the crime fiction writing classes, because you have people who come in, they're whatever, 10, 12 strangers, and they're all quite shy, and you've facilitated classes, what I'm talking about. And one of the things I do immediately, or almost immediately, is get them to write a murder. And because that's the most daunting thing, that's the thing they don't want to do, but yet they're yearning to do.
Yeah.
And as soon as they've done that, you have 10, 12, whatever it happens to be, people who were strangers who suddenly have bonded. And by the end of the I was going to say lesson, that kind of a bit teachery of me. By the end of the workshop or whatever, the session, you have people saying, oh, well, give me your email address and we'll swap manuscripts, we'll do this, we'll do that. So then that's the point where I jump in again and say, right, okay, so what about book events? What about, because you see the confidence growing straight away, and suddenly they're not on their own anymore.
Lovely to see that.
Exactly. And even right through to what I was telling you earlier on about one of my students getting a publishing contract over the weekend. I mean, the joy within the group's fantastic. And now they've seen, for me, I think it's great, because now they've seen all the stuff that I've been banging on about, this is how you do it, not just in writing, but in terms of building confidence and getting out there. Now they see that it's coming full circle. So hopefully we'll get kind of more out of that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And then just really to finish, because I think we're kind of coming up to time now, but what are you working on at the minute? Can you tell us, or any little ideas in the pipeline?
Right. I, as part of my blogging or whatever, I did put a little bit of a teaser out, maybe last week or whatever. I am working on a new project. It is going to be Northern Ireland set again. Possibly a bit more closer to home in terms of where I live now. I'm out in Antrim now, not in Belfast anymore. So at the moment, all I can tell you is it centres around someone who lived in London for a while. They've come back. There is a connection to the PSNI. There's a connection to local universities. And yeah, there's a crime in there as well. I really, really want to just tell everything, but, but I can't.
You can't, that's it. Because there's crime writers watching with little notebooks.
Exactly. Oh, don't get me started on that. Don't get me started.
Oh, thank you. No, I'm really looking forward to your next book, and I've loved the trilogy and the podcast, and you do so much for the local community, and hope you don't tire of doing that. And it's really
No, absolutely not.
Well, lovely to chat to you today, James.
You too. Thank you.
All the best. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.